Hey, all, welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'm Darren, and today we have a couple great guests. We have Chef Candace Conley and Natalia Banjac. They are from The Girl Can Cook cooking studio, and also they have a podcast called Not a Single Fork. I'll be right back with Candace and Natalia, and we'll talk about how they got started and what they do. I'll be right back.
Smoking, grilling, getting hot and hotter, sous vide and chilling from fire and water.
Hey, all, I want to introduce you to a company I just started working with, Fresh Jack's Organic Spices out of Jacksonville, Florida. They're a small, family-run company that's fast-growing. I've tried a bunch of their different seasoning blends and spices, and I can tell you they're all fresh, all organic. None of them contain artificial flavors or sweeteners. None of them have anti-caking agents or preservatives. They all taste like they were just made for you yesterday. Check them out, guys. They're on Amazon in the link below. They have different sample packs, different blends. Like I said, they also have the individual seasonings and spices as well. Fresh Jack's Organic Spices. Check them out, guys. I love them. Welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'm Darren. I'm your host, of course. And today I've got a couple great guests that very interesting. I like to find different people that have different backgrounds that love to cook. And I think I found one with Candace Conley and Natalia Banjac. Banjac? Is it Banjac?
Banjac, yes.
Banjac, okay. They run the Girl Can Cook cooking school, and they're right outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And they also have their own podcast called Not a Single Fork. Welcome, Candace. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us who you guys are and what you do.
Well, hi, Darren. Thanks for having us. I'm Candace. I'm a chef. I'm the chef, although most people think Natalia is one as well. This is my trusty sidekick, Natalia Banjac. We've been working together for over 12 years. 12. It's actually over 12 years, probably 14 years. Yeah. Because we worked together before we started the cooking classes. So we have a cooking studio and catering kitchen in Broken Arrow, which is a suburb of Tulsa. We've been here for almost 7 years, and we were in Tulsa proper for almost 5. So we've been teaching cooking for a long time. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, I like Tulsa because it's home of one of my favorite grills, the Hasty Bake. So did you guys ever have any experience with the Hasty Bakes, or do you go down by the store there? Or?
I've eaten a lot of things off of Hasty Bakes.
Yeah.
Most of my friends have one, so whenever we go over there and they grill and they do stuff outside, then it's on a Hasty Bake, and it's delicious.
Yeah, I have one on my backyard here that I got sent from them to do some videos and stuff on, but I really love it. Once you get outside of that area, though, people don't really know who they are, but they've been around since the 40s, and it's an amazing grill.
Right.
I love it.
Right.
And it's a very iconic looking grill, but they're growing. Some of the stuff that they have built into that grill that's been around for so long, and some of the other grilling companies are starting to incorporate. So Tulsa is your hometown, then I'm taking. That's where you kind of were born and raised, or?
I was born and raised in Tulsa, left like most people do, because it's a relatively small town in Oklahoma, and you have to go see what else is out there. Now, I can't speak for Natalia. She is not from Tulsa.
I'm not. I'm born and raised in England. I'm British. I know you can't tell. My family is Serbian, so I didn't grow up with a typical English culture, English food, thank God. Although the takeout food is delicious, the Indian food, the Chinese food, but the English food sometimes, some of it I love, but some of it is kind of bland. So we grew up with a lot of Serbian food, Serbian influences. Then moved.
She's much more interesting than I am.
No, that's not true.
She's been around the block a few times.
Her nickname is Gypsy.
Yeah, my friends call me Gypsy. So there you
go. So you both said you've been working about 15 years together now?
It's probably pretty close to that.
Yeah, we've been doing this for 12, and then we met in the restaurant business. So
gotcha. So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Candace, you got an interesting story. So I like to have some people that have different backgrounds. And some of the people that I thought maybe had culinary backgrounds to start out with, like Kenji Lopez Alt, he didn't even study in culinary school. He went to school for architecture, and then worked in a restaurant and fell in love with it, and that's how he got into cooking. So I hear that you actually have a PhD in psychology. Is that what you have?
I have a PhD in clinical psychology. Yeah. Yeah. I worked as a psychologist for about, almost 15 years. And it's one of those things where, and we talk about this all the time, not necessarily about psychology, but what happens is I get bored. And so I'm like, well, what can I do now? And so I always cooked. My mom was an amazing cook. And but she wasn't a good teacher. She was one of those that just, shut up and watch, and I'll show you how to do stuff. And so that's where I started learning about cooking, but it never, I was a child of the 70s. So when I graduated from high school and went to college, a degree or going to culinary school was not okay.
Especially
it was
for women.
Yeah. And coming from my family, definitely was not okay. And so I jumped around a lot in majors. I was a radio reporter for several years. And what else did I do?
She's not going to say this because she doesn't toot her own horn, but she was one of the first females in radio in Tulsa. So that's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a long time ago.
That's a very cool story.
Yeah. Well, yes. And it was interesting. And I covered a lot of interesting stories, but it wasn't where my heart was. It was fun, but it wasn't something that I just, couldn't wait to do. So lots of other things happened. I did go to graduate school. I did get a PhD in clinical psychology, and I love psychology. It's one of those things that comes naturally to me, kind of like cooking comes naturally to me. And so it was an easy thing for me to do. So I did that. And what happens in psychology, especially when you are a PhD psychologist, is you look for ways to what separates you as a psychologist from another therapist. And the thing that separates you is that psychologists, we're trained to not just administer psychological tests, but do the actual interpretation and pull all the tests together and make recommendations for treatment and that sort of thing. And so most people are really interested in that very much. And so I like to do things that will set me apart from others, so that I'm not just, I'm just another psychologist or another therapist. So I did that for a while, and I ran a children's inpatient unit for any number of years. And it was at that point that I got pregnant with my first daughter, and I said, okay, I'm done with psychology. Although I continued doing some private practice because, funnily enough, my ex-husband is a psychiatrist. So we were in practice together for a while, and we're not going there.
Okay, that's fine.
Just FYI. But I did that. And then I also, I did work for nonprofits. I did groups and things like that. So I continued to keep my finger in it. But then my family is one of those where they like to do a bunch of they've got their fingers in everything. And I come from a background of, even though culinary school wasn't something that would have been acceptable when I was graduating from high school, I come from a family of very strong women. And my mother was in business because my father died and left for the business, and she had to take care of it. So she did, but she wasn't big on women in business. This was back in the 60s, and she thought that women should be home, and she just unfortunately couldn't be home. So she set the example for just taking the bull by the horns and going. And so we would end up doing lots of dumb stuff. Caught myself.
You did.
And and so one of the dumb things that we ended up doing was taking on a failing restaurant, because they were at that time I was doing a lot of cooking, and I would entertain, and people would say, oh, why don't you have your own restaurant? Why don't you cater? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And I was just like, no. I don't want to get in. I've got little kids. I can't get into that business. Well, I end up in the business because my family jumps into it. And I ended up running.
Well, wasn't that dumb? That's where I came from.
We met her. Yeah. But my, I learned how to cook on a line in a restaurant. The stress of doing that and getting dishes out. Then I worked also front of the house, and that's where we met. Natalia came on as bar manager.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she's a bartender, and she ran all the servers and back of the house staff and that sort of thing. And we just
connected. We just clicked.
Yeah.
Cool.
And we just kind of ran the place together.
Now, what kind of restaurant was that? Was it more of a white tablecloth, more of a diner
it was
type?
fine dining.
Fine dining.
It was fine dining, but it was American contemporary, and the place where we were located, it was all very hip and all that jazz. And people who traveled a lot and they would come through Tulsa, they loved our restaurant, but people in Tulsa weren't ready. We were ahead of the curve, basically. Yeah. And so it just wasn't, it was doomed.
Well, there were a few things against us. I mean, first of all, she had gone in with her family to try to fix this failing restaurant. Then we did our best. There was a lot of construction that happened. Then the ice storm, we had a huge ice storm in Tulsa in 2007. And then, we were just like, this is not working.
Yeah.
This isn't working. Yeah. So we shut that down. And then, we talked about what if it was about a year in between shutting that down and opening the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was about a year. So we kind of in that year talked about what we wanted to do next and like what that transition looked like and how we wanted to execute that, where that wanted to go. And because we knew we wanted to do it together because we just did everything together.
Well, and one of the things that happened while we still had the restaurant was there was a business next door called the Viking Gallery, and it was run by one of the regional appliance businesses, and they had a place in Tulsa. And so this was kind of a satellite for all their Viking appliances. The manager one day, knowing that I came from a teaching background in psychology, she said, well, do you want to try teaching a cooking class? And I said, sure, why not? I've never done that, but okay, which is what I do. And so it actually turned out to be a cooking demo. I flew by the seat of my pants. I didn't really know what I was doing. But everybody loved the food and loved the way that I taught. So that started me thinking, well, maybe the next step is some kind of teaching for home cooks. And then I would also go out to the big store to teach because it was full of teaching kitchens and still is.
But they're all demo kitchens too. So then again, while she was in that and doing that, we thought, well, how can we do this and do it better
in a different way?
Yeah. And because they're trying to sell their appliances,
Sure.
They're not trying to, that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what Candace helped them do.
They're not really trying to teach people. They're trying to teach people how to use their products so they buy
right,
them.
Exactly. Right. And you continued doing that for a while. You were
I was a Thermador chef. I represented Thermador and ended up with a really great kitchen in my own home, actually, as a result of that. But so I think we stopped it. Well, of course, there was the pandemic, and then probably I would say we stopped doing it maybe a couple years ago. It just it wasn't going anywhere. And the guy who really got me into it, he changed jobs and, things happen like that. So, yeah. Yeah.
Then we picked up and the kitchen was kind of born. And what year was that?
2009.
Okay.
We started the kitchen in Tulsa.
And it was a small
Old
house. So we had to kind of make do with the space that we had. We could only get 6 to 8 to maybe 10 at the most people in there.
Yeah.
Old plumbing, old.
It was cold. Oh God, it was cold in the winter and hot in the summer. Yeah. And for some reason, people stuck with us in spite of all that.
It took a long time.
Now let's back up a little bit. Did you go to culinary school, or did you just strictly learn in the restaurants?
No, I did not go to culinary school. I learned in the restaurant, and then I learned
That's
from
the
my
best
mom.
place to learn. That's where I learned. I started when I was younger.
I got good cooking genes.
Yeah, that's where I learned. I started, in the restaurant business when I was 16, washing dishes, worked my way into the kitchen and into the line and all that. But
we strongly believe that's the only way to do it.
Yeah. But then when I got older and had a baby and stuff, I really found out that you can't make a whole lot of money in it. And the hours are kind of, off-putting. So I went into the banking business, but I always loved to cook. That's where I got my love for cooking was, helping my mom in the kitchen. But then I really loved to cook, but I just knew I couldn't do it as a career. I knew I didn't want to open a restaurant because I know I've seen too many of those fail. No matter how good they are, they can run for a year or two and then, something changes and everything goes to heck. So, they're really hard to keep afloat no matter how much you love to cook. So,
yeah,
but I've always loved to cook, and I've always done, and that's kind of why I started what I do, is because I love showing people how to cook, and I love showing people different methods and all that. So it sounds like you both have a passion to help people and teach people. So do you use your kitchen for just the cooking classes, or do you lease it out to food trucks or anything like that?
When we started out, our idea was that we could do that, rent it to people who, they wanted to start making, something, or they had a food truck. We had capabilities to be that. It didn't work out great. Tulsa's, it's growing, but it's not a huge place. Right. And you can't really make any money doing that. So we pretty much just do our cooking classes now and cater.
Now, when did you started your cooking classes for yourselves after the Thermidor and after the Viking thing?
Well, after I worked at the Viking Gallery, we shut down the restaurant. We happened upon an old house in Tulsa, in Midtown Tulsa. We opened the cooking school then, and we limped along for about 5 years. Well, we had more than one person.
Yeah, we did. But still, even after 5, we were like,
we got to have more room. We got to be able to do more. Yeah. So the building. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
How were they successful right off the bat? Was it a slow roll, or how many people did you have when you first started doing it?
One.
Hey, got to start with somewhere. One's a good number.
So, we would do basically very personal 2-on-1 cooking classes.
We did.
For a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still had a full-time job. I had a full-time job up until 2 years ago. So I'd work during the day, and then I'd run over to the kitchen in the evening. Candace would be there, of course, and we'd do our one-person class. Yeah.
We don't do that anymore.
So you started with one. So now how many do you have on a regular basis on an average class? Before the pandemic shut us down, we would have up to 16 in a class.
Yeah. 3 nights a week.
And every night?
Every night.
Yeah. And then now do you have different skills that you teach them? You have like the basic skills, and then you go into specific cuisines and all of that, or how do you work your classes?
We have a class calendar, and on the calendar we have a lot of different cuisines that we teach. So a lot of Italian, Mexican, Asian, Spanish, Mediterranean, and then there's a lot of steak and potatoes.
Now, how do you work that? Do you sign up for just one class, or can you sign up for a series of classes? Can you sign up for like a month worth of classes? How do you work that?
Well, frankly, they can sign up any way they want to, but all of our classes are standalone.
User friendly, if you will, because out of those 16 people, we don't know if they all cook at home, or if this is their first time holding a knife, or if they know what an onion is, or
Right.
So I don't want to say it's basic on our classes, because it's not, but we're getting different skill levels every evening in every class. So we need all those people to feel comfortable and confident in what they're doing. So that's kind of how we base each class.
Do you have regulars that come to one or two classes a month and just keep coming back?
We do. Yes.
Yeah. So typically we're scheduled Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Our classes are 2 hours. They're from 6 to 8. Sometimes we have once a month, we have Friday classes. We have kids classes on Saturday. We don't teach those. We have a chef instructor that teaches those. She's much nicer than us, and more warm and fuzzy.
Yes.
And but we are often surprised at how many classes we go through, and we don't know anybody. And there's just all these new people all the time, and it's great. We love that. I mean, obviously, it's nice to see our familiar faces, but we're always shocked after 12 years of doing this that we still get full classes of 16 people. We don't know anybody.
Now, how do you do your marketing? Do you just word of mouth? Do you put it out there on Groupons, or how do you market?
It's mainly word of mouth. We have Facebook. We have a website. We tried what was it? Oh, it was Living Social. We never did Groupon, but we tried Living Social. We've tried a lot of different things, but we've just found that word of mouth works best. I've been on, the local news programs doing cooking segments.
You did that a lot.
I did that a lot. And then, it's just really, we tried magazines, we tried radio, and it just ends up that we've spent a lot of money and there's no return.
Hey, it's Darren, and I want to take a second to talk to you about the high-powered torches from Grill Blazer, the grill gun and sous vide gun. I was lucky enough to be a part of this project long before it was a Kickstarter, and I love them. If you're looking for something to sear your food within seconds, check out the sous vide gun. If you're looking for a torch to light your grill and have it up and cooking within 5 minutes, your lump or briquettes, check out the grill gun. It can also light outdoor fire pits and your fireplace within minutes. Check it out, guys, at the link below and get 10% off your order. Check out the grill gun and the sous vide gun by Grill Blazer. Yeah. So you touched on that. You did some local news shows. How was that when you first did one of those? Was it something you felt comfortable doing? Was it something you had to work yourself up for, or was it something natural to you to just kind of?
Well, part of my my training when I was in college is I was in theater. So one of the things that I always wanted to do was be an actor, which of course my mom put the kibosh on that. So that was not happening, but I spent a lot of time doing it. And yeah, I'm pretty natural on camera and comfortable. And the people I've worked with for the most part, I can tell if they're generous on camera or if I have to do all the work. And so it's always been fun. Frankly, I don't do anything that isn't fun. And so if it's fun, I'm there. If it's not, we say no.
So walking into that, so how did you get, I heard you were on a Food Network show called the Cooks versus Cons. So how did you walk into that type of deal? They just gave you a email or give you a call one day, or?
I pretty regularly apply for cooking shows. I like to do that. I have the dream of one day having my own show. And so any opportunity I have to do a cooking show, I do it. And to have the opportunity to do a national one was really exciting. I applied and I understand the whole casting, producing process. And for whatever reason on that particular show, they were looking for someone like me. And so once I submitted my application, then we went through a series of Skype interviews and telephone interviews. And then I was in Jersey City, New Jersey, in a warehouse, taping the show starting at 7:00 in the morning until after midnight. So it's pretty grueling, but it's exciting and fun and something different. Yeah.
Now, what was the episode that you had? What was the cook? I know they have different kind of like Chopped, where they give you, the ingredients to kind of work with. So how did yours turn out?
The first, let's see, the first segment, the first part of the segment, we had to cook what Jeffrey Zakarian told us to cook. So we had to cook with we had to do something with chicken, and then we had to use some pineapple things. So it could be fresh pineapple, it could be pineapple vodka, it could be pineapple, dried pineapple. It was just all kinds of pineapple. And you had to take chicken and make something with chicken and pineapple. So that was the first round. I won that round. What did you make? I made chicken milanese with a salsa that incorporated pineapple and bell peppers and that kind of thing. So it sort of was Italian Mexican. And then the second round, you had your choice of what protein you could use, but you had to incorporate some type of potato product. So you couldn't use fresh potatoes. So you either had what they called, what do they call tater tots? They were
potato croquettes.
Yeah, mini potato croquettes. They were tater tots.
Tater tots.
Yeah, they had
fancy name for tater tots.
Yeah, they had potato flakes. They had vodka. Yeah. There were a couple other things, and so you had to do whatever you were going to do with your protein and incorporate some kind of potato. And so what I made was I went strictly Italian on that one and made sauteed pork tenderloin with marinara, and then I made what's called a frico, which is traditional to the north in Italy. So it's like it's a potato pancake basically.
But
it's a big thick, and it's potato and cheese, lots of cheese. Yes, very cheesy. Yeah. So I lost.
What did you lose to? Was it something that you said,
I should not have lost.
Okay.
It was,
that's what you stink.
Yeah. He did something with salmon and potato flakes. And then I think the reason why they decided that he won was because he used two different kinds of the potato products. I think maybe he used the vodka and the flakes. And so anyway, I lost.
Oh, well, but you had
Water
the
under the
experience.
bridge. Yeah, exactly.
It's fun. It's something different to do, and we can tell everybody she's done something different.
Yeah,
exactly. It's an experience. I've had a couple people on my show that have been on those shows, and they say it's totally different experience. So now talking about that though, I noticed you don't have any kind of a YouTube presence or channel. I've seen you have some videos on YouTube where you're in them, especially some of the ones from the TV shows. Have you ever thought of doing your own YouTube channel where you're teaching cooking? Because I kind of have my own little channel doing that as well.
We do. Well, I guess the short answer is yes, I have thought about it. The long answer is I can't keep up with all the social media as it is.
There is a lot.
Yeah. So I would love to have a YouTube channel, but it's not in the cards right now.
Well, that's kind of the way I started. What I do is I started with a Facebook group to see if it was something I wanted to do. And I got that going and found a lot of interest, and I started doing some YouTube videos. So I kind of had that, and I kind of stick my hands in a little bit of everything, but I don't really 100% focus on anything. So I'll have, a little YouTube channel. I got some Instagram I put up, the Facebook groups. I got a couple different ones. I got the podcast that I do now. And And what I've found is, it's like, I'm sure you found, is it's hard to drag somebody from Facebook into YouTube or to follow your podcast. They all kind of stay in their own little areas. So, people that are on Facebook, I'll have a couple that might watch my YouTube videos, but most of them will stay over there in the Facebook. And then the ones on YouTube will stay over on YouTube. They don't kind of cross pollinate somehow. So it's kind of weird how it works. Like Instagram, I'll have, 400 followers on Instagram, but I got 50,000 followers on Facebook, which how does that happen?
Exactly.
And the podcast, let's talk about your podcast. When did you start that, and why did you start that?
I think, has it been 2 years?
I think it'll be 2 years this year.
Yeah, it was in June.
And we started just kind of talking about it, just kind of playing around with the idea of it. And we met with her and we said, do you think you? If so, how do you do it? Give us more information.
Mm-hmm.
And we just kind of did, and then we just did it.
Yeah. Just got a microphone and
The first sat in Candace's bedroom by the bed, huddled up together and spoke into one little baby microphone like this. And did that for a while. It's something fun and different for us to do. And you like to have your hands in different things and do different things. We do too. We've been doing cooking classes for so long. We love them. We still love them very much. But sometimes you just want to do something different, and it's just a different avenue for us too. And we can just
especially her.
Yeah. And then we can just talk, and we can just I can't think of any words right now.
And that's kind of the way I started mine. I started mine more because I want to talk to people and pick their brains and ask them questions and explore how people started. Like, when I first started mine, I started asking people to be on. I was shocked that people did not even knowing who I was, or just starting a podcast, that are agreeing to come on my podcast. I had people like Meathead Goldwyn from Amazing Ribs, and Steven Reichlin, people that have been around for a while that are big in their industries. I go, yeah, sure, I'll come on. And it's like, you don't even know who I am. I just started. I got like 10 listeners, and they're like, who cares? But people, they're promoting themselves, and they started small too. So, but I found I really like talking to people like that to find out where they started, how they started, especially people like Kenji, so people can understand. You don't have to be some specially trained, French chef that has to study in Paris to be a world-renowned chef. You could, work part-time in a restaurant, fall in love with cooking, and then throw your passion into it and write the food lab,
Yeah.
So.
I'm a big fan of Kenji. I love his stuff.
Well, and even like our podcast relates to our cooking classes. And our cooking classes, we want people, we're trying to teach, we're not trying to show them what Candace can do, like, woo, look what Candace can do. We're trying to teach people to help them cook more at home, feel more comfortable at home. Our podcast is the same thing. It's just a little looser, but it's for those people that want to learn how to cook at home, take the intimidation out of it. Know that we're real people too, and we screw up and things get caught on fire, and stuff happens, and it's okay. Keep going. Like, if you want to keep going, keep going.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why I did it, because I can bring these people down that people like I did. I'd look up to them and go, wow, I can't believe Steven Reichlin's on here, but he's just a regular guy, just like me and you. He started doing it the same way I did. He just found a passion, loved it, and started sharing it with people. So, so me being able to bring those people down, and some people can understand, wow, this guy's just a regular guy. He's not, wasn't, somebody that was born to be a world-class chef, So the podcast is fun.
The podcast is fun. I'm sure you have a good time on yours too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And part of what we say in our mission, and then it's kind of a mantra, is that we want real people cooking real food. And so in our podcast, we just, capitalize on that, and we introduce you to real people, and that anybody can do what they do.
What's in the future for you guys? Are you can just grow your cooking classes? Do you see yourselves doing more of those? What do you see you guys doing in the future?
We have, for better or for worse, created kind of a monster in our cooking studio, because we have a particular style that we have for teaching class, and it's kind of a dog and pony show. And we frankly haven't been able to find anyone who can, to live up to our expectations for our cooking classes.
We thought about franchising, and we thought about, growing outwards in that way.
Right.
And that's so struggle.
It's a big struggle.
It's a big struggle.
It's a big struggle. And it took us, like 3 or 4 years to find a kids instructor. And we finally have a gal who just does an amazing job. She talk about the repeat customers. She has a lot of those. So we probably are as big as we can get with our cooking school. I'm guessing.
Well, there's something else we've added that we added again during the pandemic, but we're continuing, which is new for us, is we're doing a Facebook Live cook along once a month from Candace's kitchen at her house. So people can just tune in on Facebook Live. They can go shopping. They have a list of everything they need to get beforehand. And again, before it was so they didn't have to, leave their house and come to class. And now it's just, some people just don't want to go and do stuff, and that's fine. And it's a convenience factor, and you can be, naked. You can be in your pajamas. We can't see you.
Yeah,
we don't along with us and ask questions live with us.
And you don't have to cook. You can just watch and ask questions and drink, because that's what a lot of people do. So, so we do those once a month. And we have played around with the idea of a restaurant.
We have, even though we
said
12 years ago, we'll never do this again. It's so hard. I mean, that anybody that's been in that world knows it's not a cakewalk. It's not glamorous. It's not all this other stuff that you see on TV. It's real work, and it's hard to find people that want to really work.
It's not just about having great food. You got to watch the people that are working for you. You got to watch, cost controls and food, and people just don't understand. The more menu items you have on a menu in a restaurant, the more cost it's going to be, more waste you have, the more things you got to try to make out of it.
Yes, so exactly.
It's very, you go to a restaurant and they've got 562 items on their menu, they're losing money.
Yeah.
So
yes, absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of cooking with barbecue and sous vide and mixing them together. Do you guys ever use sous vide at all in your cooking classes, or do you teach any barbecue or grilling classes at all, or is it strictly traditional type, Italian or
we teach a lot of grilling, hopefully, because we have a lot of people. Well, I mean, Oklahoma is kind of the land of meat and potatoes, and we do a lot of steak classes, and I'm always surprised by the number of people who, in spite of grilling at home and thinking that they're really good at it, they know so little about how to really do it so their food tastes delicious. So we do a lot of grilling. We do a little bit of barbecue, not a lot, because it's time consuming, and we have a limited time period, and also I think people can only pay attention for so long.
Because some of our I don't know what they are, clientele are just out for a fun night out. Like they just want to come and hang out and have a few drinks, and maybe they'll learn something. Maybe they won't. They're just out to do something fun. So we've got to kind of hone in on that too. But the sous vide we don't do, because everybody has their own individual station, and it's all hands-on in our classes. So that would be a
and that can be time consuming as well. I know I have friends of mine that teach sous vide classes, and a lot of stuff has to be prepared ahead of time.
Oh, you'd have to. You would have to.
You don't have 4 hours for, to wait for a chicken to get done and cooking in the sous vide. So
we have 2 hours from start to finish.
Yeah. And we have a hard enough time when they're waiting for things to saute that they don't start messing around with everything on their tabletop. So
or
so that would be
trying to reduce a sauce. It doesn't just take 5 minutes to reduce a sauce. All right.
No, and they want it to take 1 minute.
This isn't a TV show where you can cut to a commercial and come back and my sauce is ready.
Here's one we prepared earlier.
Let's take it out of the oven. Here it is.
Exactly.
Well, I want to thank you guys for being on. It's been fun, and hopefully you guys will continue to grow, and hopefully this pandemic goes away, since everybody's getting vaccinated now, you can get back to getting full classes. Are you back to doing full classes now, or are you still kind of limiting the number?
we're slowly moving in that direction. So little by little, we're getting there. We've increased our date nights a little bit, and then we look at the classes and see if because we have a limit, we have 8 tables, and we can't put strangers together like we used to. So we have to really watch that kind of thing. So we're slowly but surely increasing back up to where we were, but we're not in a rush to do it. Things are working well now. So we'll get there. We'll get there.
Great. Well, I appreciate you guys being on, and I'll make sure that everybody has your links to your website and everything in the description below. But it is the name of your website is thegirlcancookschool.com. So if you want to find out anything about Candace and Natalia, you can find it there. And you can also, the podcast is called Not a Single Fork. And you can find that in any podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, all those places. And I'll put a link to that in the description as well. But I want to thank you guys for being on. Anything else you want to talk about before we go?
I think we're pretty well covered it.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being on. Thanks for being on. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks a lot, Darren. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Check out thegirlcancookschool.com to find out more about the cooking classes. And you can also check out Not a Single Fork podcast anywhere you find podcasts. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, follow us on Facebook, Instagram. Make sure you join us again on the next Fire and Water Cooking podcast. I'll see you on the next one.